So, why the God of War ending worked and why I wanted more. So, first of all, I just want to say that I think it's a really good game, really visually awesome, awesome combat, amazing music, amazing voice acting. I thought it was just about as good as the last game, better in some regards. Um, and the first thing that I'll say is that going into it, I had an anticipation and an intrigue for some of the mysteries they set up in the first game. And uh, I was really interested to see where the story would go. So when the game starts, Ragnarok starts, you know, immediately it sucked me in with what's going on with Odin and Atreus, and uh, you know, if there's going to be any really insane like kind of workarounds for preventing these prophecies and not falling into the images of the murals and all that stuff, right? So all that's kind of working in the background. And as you progress through the game, there's hints about, you know, there being four parts of the soul. And like one of them is like direction. And this direction part is lacking with another character. And that makes it so that, you know, he wouldn't be able to be sent to an afterlife if he were to die again. So I kept thinking that there was going to be some kind of plot line with Atreus, his ability to pull souls out of things and like house them in other objects, and this like concept of the four parts of the soul. I thought all of those things were going to be at play, and it was going to be a way for him to basically like get his father back, because it seems like everything they're doing is playing into the prophecies and the murals. Like it seems like there's really going to be no way for Atreus to avoid Kratos dying. So why I wanted more, I thought they were building up something like that. Um, and yeah, I just thought they were building up something there, and it didn't really hit. Like it doesn't really fit in with what I thought was going to happen, which is fine. I just thought that there could have been something a little bit more epic there. And then the other reason I wanted more is because who blew the horn from the first game? That like I kept waiting to figure out who blew the horn. I thought I thought that like there could be um, a moment where Thor and Jormungandr clash, and you know Jormungandr gets hit back in time, and you like hitch a ride on him or something. And I thought there was going to be, some kind of Back to the Future thing. I mean, maybe that was just me like looking into it too much, but I really thought that that was like going to be a plot line, like or a part of the game based on just some of the things they set up in the first game. So, and in God of War Ragnarok at the ending, um, you see in the background like the serpent, and you see like Thor fighting it, and it just like there's like a little thing in the far background, and it like hits. There's like lightning, and then it like just like bleeps out of like space and time or whatever, and it's like I guess that was it. So, and I think that could have been because they decided to make the game two games, make the series two games and not three games. They said in an interview that Cory Barlog decided they should do it in two at one point. And then there was another interview with some of the devs saying like it was a challenge to incorporate so many plot lines and characters into just a second game. So that's one of the reasons why I think I wanted more, is I wanted more in terms of a little bit more just like adventure in the story. Don't get me wrong, like for the first part and middle of the game, I thought it was like fabulous. But then as you near the end, it seems like it all kind of comes together too fast. Um, so that's like just briefly, what I wanted more of. I guess like in terms of combat, a little bit more melee, like shield and fist moves would have been nice with, um, and then also not like rehashing just runic attacks from the first game. Thought they should have made new ones. And then I thought there should have been one more weapon, you know, like some kind of sword weapon, some kind of weapon that gives you another traversal option, or maybe it's something like Thor's hammer. Like maybe you can imbue that power in some way into like the axe, or get a new weapon that can imbue that power so that you can like use it to like launch up things. I kept thinking there was going to be something like that in the game. And like when you get the spear, it's like awesome that you can now get to some new areas and stuff. I thought there was going to be at least one more. So so that's why I wanted more. But the why I think it worked. This part I think I've kind of like figured out. I haven't watched anybody else's like breakdown or anything like that, but I was talking to my brother after we'd both beaten the game on the same day, and we called each other, and we were trying to figure out how is it that they were able to defy fate even though they seemed like they were fulfilling it at all times. And I think that I basically pinpointed the moment at which all of this kind of works and makes sense. So when Garm is released and then wreaking havoc in all the realms by causing tears everywhere, Atreus comes back and he admits his mistake. He goes home to Sindri's house, and everybody's there accusing him. Everyone that's supposed to care about him is accusing him and of making a grave mistake. The only one that really doesn't is Kratos. Kratos kind of like tells him like, yeah, you made a mistake. But then he, like a good father, this is like an incredibly great move from a fatherly perspective, is that he doesn't berate him senselessly. He actually just says, let's go like fix this mistake, and I'm just going to go help you. And Atreus feels bad enough, but his father isn't going to make him feel worse about it. He's just going to help him fix the problem. So that's really great. So they go to find Garm, they go back to Helheim, and Garm is just like a rabid giant wolf wreaking havoc everywhere. He's just like a killing machine that's like slashing through all the realms, right? It's kind of like a metaphor almost for like what Kratos was like before. He's like realm traveling, uh, just killing everything. So, and they have two plans, right? Atreus' plan is to tame it, which fails. And then Kratos' plan is to kill it, which also fails. So, and the reason that they fail is because the thing's nature is to be a chaotic, rabid creature that cannot die and keeps reviving. So its nature doesn't allow them to fulfill their plans, one or the other, Kratos's or Atreus's. So Atreus comes up with a new plan, right, which is to change its nature, which is by giving it the soul of Fenrir, which completely changes the wolf, to a domesticated animal that takes commands from Atreus and Kratos, which is like really cool. And it's this point of changing something's nature, which changes the trajectory of its destiny, basically, right? So, after they succeed with that, they make a promise to one another. Atreus and Kratos, and this is the major point. This is why they defy fate. They make a promise to one another, and the promise is that they will hear each other's voices when they're apart. So basically, they're exchanging souls in a way, or a part of their souls. So, because if you hear in your innermost thoughts someone else's thoughts or someone else's voice, you've kind of like internalized them into your soul. So, what this does is it allows Atreus to hear the good lessons from his father, and the disciplines from his father, and it allows Kratos to hear the compassion of Atreus in their like hearts, like in their souls, in their minds. Once this promise is built, um, throughout this whole journey of the first two games, right? It's built through their relationship growing. They finally get to this point where they have total trust of one another. They can live in each other's heads, basically. And it's not like a thing in the game where it's like he actually hears the voice like in his head, and it's like, I can hear you. He's just saying they've like internalized each other, and like their relationship is very strong, that they trust each other fully. And this happens a lot. Like Kratos is saying, like, I trust you, and Kratos says to him, like, I trust you. Like, they have total faith in one another after this promise is made. Um, so what this does is it changes their nature. Um, Kratos is no longer the god killer that is like Garm, the rabid dog, tearing through the realms, murdering everything. Because he has this relationship with his son, and they have this promise where they're going to live in each other's minds. So I believe that because their nature is changed through that promise, they are able to defy fate, when it really counts. The scene with the mask, when Atreus is like deciding what to do, he's got Odin, who is like a false father figure, on one side, and then his Kratos, who is his real father, on the other. Um, he can either choose like the Loki, or he can choose the Atreus. And Atreus is doing something different. He's like struggling with this duality between Loki and Atreus all the time. But what he ends up doing is he just like intertwines them. And Kratos at the end even says, like, Loki is going and Atreus remains with him. And so he takes on both names. And in that moment, when he's got the false father figure and the true father figure on one hand and the other, he breaks the mask. He doesn't want to pursue just knowledge and power. He decides to forego that. And Atreus even says, like, I trust you. Right before he breaks it, he's just like, I trust you. Like, whatever happens, I will be there for you. And that gives him the strength to break it, not to seek power and knowledge, but rather to be a hero and to be a good son. And so all of those, the message is like simply like, changing your nature changes your fate. And the metaphor for that was the putting of Fenrir's soul into Garm. And then you see the promises made, and they exchange each other's parts of each other's like heart or soul to one another. And this changes their nature. And Kratos even has another part where he apologizes to Atreus and says, no, I'm sorry, I was wrong. You shouldn't close your heart to this. This compassion you have is something that's good about you, you know and it's needed. And so he basically says, I'm sorry, like, don't close your heart to it. Anyway, so I think that this is the message of the game, is that even if something seems fated, even if something seems inevitable, um, changing you can change your nature, you can change your destiny. I don't mean you can change your nature like, like you can't be a human or something. I mean, like, you can change your trajectory of your destiny, uh, with this like love that you can form with strong relationships between other people. Um, I think that's like the message of how you defy fate and make it through Ragnarok. And this is how Kratos is saved by his son. And this is how Atreus is saved by his father. Like they save each other, which is kind of cool. Um, and so initially, when I beat the game, I was feeling kind of like, how did they beat fate? Like, he just like decides. Um, but he doesn't just decide. It's the Norns say at one point that it's like they can predict what's going to happen because like their choices are easy to see or something. um and because of like Kratos is like nature. I don't know if they say the word nature, but they think they just say like, well, that's like what you are, like what you are is like a god killer, or like what you are is this thing. That's like your nature, right? So anyway, just once again to reiterate, I think the reason the ending works is because they did a great job of not getting too off the rails, even though I kind of wanted them to go a little more sci-fi. But they didn't get too off the rails, too far off from the main story, which is the father and son relationship between Kratos and Atreus. They completely fulfill that story by having them really bond and make this promise of exchanging natures and internalizing those natures, which allows them to then make a decision, even through what seems to be the prophecy being totally fulfilled, and have a decision that actually does change their destiny and their fate. That's why I think it worked. And that's why I also kind of wanted more at the same time. But overall, thought it was pretty awesome. Thanks.